Oh my God, so do I.
All are your enemies.
It's nice, even if you aspire to be that, and even if you participate at the club level, you're among the 10% of all the Toastmasters population in the world. About 35,000 people compete for the World Championship of Public Speaking, out of a total of around 350,000 Toastmasters worldwide. So even if you decide to participate, you're already among the top 10%. Now you just have to make it to that one position. Okay? So step by step, I want this session to focus on the 50 marks that you can get straight away. You see, your voting ballot is divided into 100 marks. You get 50 for content, you get 30 for delivery, and you get 20 for language. Now, the 20 marks for language, a lot of us are brought up in various environments. We may not have the gift of the gab when it comes to the English vernacular. We may not have had the privilege to study in schools that focused on English as a communication skill. So probably those 20 marks may not be in our control. Then it comes to delivery. Some of us are dancers. We can express ourselves on stage. We can probably say with our eyes more than what it will take my entire body to say. Okay? Again, that is not in your control. But what is in your control is content. And I wanted to talk about content. Specifically, what kind of speeches generally win at World Championship of Public Speaking. So to start with, in this very room, a few weeks ago, there was an installation ceremony, Capital City Toastmasters. And Toastmaster Anushka Tyagi said something. She said that a team is an emotional force. Now, I've done quite a few installations myself. And I've said that sentence myself so many times. But something that day made me sit up and take notice. Maybe it was the way she said it. Maybe I was listening to it intently for the first time. Maybe it made sense to me. But in that one moment, a key had turned in the lock. I kind of realized why a team is what it is. A team is an emotional force. If you don't have that emotional force with you, you don't have a team, period. The same goes for a speech. Your speech is an emotional force. What does a force do? It causes change. Okay? So right now, I want you all to stand up in your seats. And now sit down. Now this is something that I have plagiarized from Toastmasters, Master Smita Sen Gupta. I caused you to move. Your speech should move your audiences. Okay? So that speech is supposed to be an emotional force. It is supposed to leave an impact. When you get off that stage, people should remember you for that speech. A lot of the speeches that happen at international speech contests, people tend not to remember them. There has to be what Toastmaster Shrey Saxena called a hook to your speech. If that hook is missing, the entire content of your speech will be worthless. So it has to tag some emotion. It has to peak at some emotion in your audience. So let's say that you're talking about a trip to the mountains. A lot of people talk about the adventure trips that they took. Now, if you are at the top of the mountain, and if it is biting cold out there, your audience should be shivering in their seats when you talk about the environment at the top of the mountain. If you are trudging in the hot desert, your audience should be perspiring, even in this weather. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Second, your speech needs to have a message. And this is where most of the speeches fail. They either don't have a message or they have more than one message. Now, in a 5 to 7 minute speech, you can have maximum one message. And if you can reinforce that message, in your opening, in your body, in your conclusion, you're almost there. It's a very simple thing to follow. But 99% of the time, the message is not there. And then your speech becomes, your audience is looking at you with that expression from Three Idiots. Bhai, kehna kya chahte? Now, there are two parts to your message. One, what is it that you are trying to do to the audience? Are you trying to inspire them? Are you trying to motivate them? Are you trying to inform them? Are you trying to make them realize something? The second thing is, what do you want the audience to do once your speech is over? That call to action has to be there. If that call to action is not there, you will not be marked accordingly. Third, and more importantly, it needs to have a universal context. How many of you have heard Manoj Vasudevan's championship winning speech, 2017? Now in that speech, he goes that on 4th of July, USA got its independence and I lost mine because I got married. Funny enough. But the kind of muted laughter that we had now, it was the same muted laughter. The reason was he was giving that speech in Vancouver, Canada. Canadians do not care if it is 4th of July. Had he given the same speech in the US, it would have probably had more context. But understand, when you are giving a speech, that speech needs to have universal context. I'm not saying international context. What is context? And this is a question that was asked in the recent judges training program. A person said, what if I talk about the recipe of kadi chawal? Will it work? The answer is context. Can you explain kadi chawal in 30 seconds and then go out to describe the content around it? It will work, 100% it will work. But first you need to establish the context. If you do not establish context, then people will not know what you are talking about. For example, Aaron Beverly's speech, the World Championship winning speech, he was talking about an Indian wedding. The reason he succeeded was because he created context. He was wearing an Indian dress. He was speaking about a ritual which is not easily understood. Many people don't understand why do you go about stealing the groom's shoes, right? But he managed to establish that context. Until and unless your speech does not establish context, it does not establish a universal context, it is not going to succeed. It needs to have more than 60% pathos. What do I mean by pathos? How many of you understand pathos? Ethos, logos, pathos. Ethos is the integrity you bring to the speech. Logos is the logic.
Pathos
and pathos is the passion. Why does pathos matter so much? Because ethos is about you. Why should the audience trust you? What are you bringing to the table? Logos is what are you talking about? It is the subject. Pathos is about what's in it for me. You're telling the audience why you need to listen to their, why they need to listen to your speech. And unless and until your speech does not have more than 60% pathos, it will not succeed. For example, our current Prime Minister, and I'm not trying to arouse any political opinions here, say what you will, the man is a crowd puller. People turn up in thousands to listen to him. And his speeches are more than 60% passion. He speaks from his heart. He arouses emotions. Hence, to my first sentence, that your speech is an emotional force, it comes from that 60% passion. And last advice that I can give you, last but by no means the least, it has to be sincere. Mark Brown, in the movie called Speak, if you get a chance, watch that movie. I can share the URL with you. It's about the 2012 or 13 World Championship of Public Speaking that was won by Lashunda Rondell, who passed away. He says that a lot of people think that your story has to be sensational. That's not true. It has to be sincere. Because a sincere speech will come from here and it will touch people here. All you're supposed to do is you have to create an environment inside your head. and replicate that same environment inside everyone else's head. If they can imagine that, if you are, let's say, describing that painting, if you can recreate that painting word for word inside their head, you have managed to establish a connect. And once you establish that connect, the audience will be with you. Personally speaking, Agra, 2018, I had broken my leg. I had no idea how I was going to perform on stage. Went on stage, and I noticed that somehow the audience started finding my jokes funny. And that motivated me even further. When did I know that they had established a connect? Because my punchline was getting repeated by them. There were times when I didn't even have to repeat my punchline, but they were repeating the punchline themselves. And that is connect. So, 5 basic principles. First of all, your speech is an emotional force. Second one,
Message.
the message is the most important thing. It answers 2 things. What is it that you're trying to tell the audience? And the second one is, what do you want the audience to do afterwards? Third one is,
At least
it has to be there. It has to be 60% passion. Fourth one,
sincere.
the fourth one is something. Sincerity comes in. It needs to have a universal context. You might as well tell a story around the Indian dowry laws, but at least give it a universal context. People need to understand the concept of dowry. You might be talking about an arranged marriage and it might be a very humorous speech to Indians, but you need to establish that context with the universal audience. And last but not the least, your story does not have to be sensational. It has to be sincere. And if it is sincere, it will come from here and it will touch people here. Hope that was helpful. Thank you so very much for being such a patient audience. I will now give it back to